Hi, everyone. Happy World CLT Day. We made it. This is my third webinar this week, and please don't tell anyone, but this might be my favorite. I'm really excited to welcome you all here today for this really special event with my colleagues, Dr. Trasila Fidalgo and Felipe Litzek, coordinator and assistant coordinator, respectively, at the Favela CLT Project at Catalytic Communities. Today, we're going to have them talk about Brazil's emerging CLT movement. My name is Ben Harris. I'm the Director of Communications for the International Center for Community Land Trusts, also known as the CLT Center. Just before we begin, a few quick notes that today's discussion will be in English. However, we all speak English, Spanish, Portuguese, a little bit of French if you need assistance. But I just want to have a note for language access that live transcription and automatic translation of captions are available. So you can turn the captions on by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And then to translate those captions, click the up arrow next to the CC button, toggle the translation, and select your preferred language. Um, Also, this session is being recorded and notes will be shared with all participants after the event. If you'd like to stay connected, we will be in contact afterward. And just as a quick, brief intro, for those who may not know, the International Center for Community Land Trusts, it was founded in 2018 to support the worldwide movement of CLTs and similar strategies of community-led development on community-owned land. We're governed by a board of directors from 7 different countries, and we work as a bridge connecting practitioners across borders, a library preserving and sharing knowledge, and a think tank sharing innovative practices that support collective land stewardship. We also publish books and monographs under our imprint, Terra Nostra Press. Also, as I mentioned, top of the hour, today is World CLT Day. uh, World CLT Day is a global celebration of the power, creativity, and diversity of the CLT movement. It's about raising awareness, building solidarity, and frankly, celebrating all the hard work that people like Tarsila, Felipe, and surely some of the folks on this call are doing around the world. So excuse me, today's session will consist of 2 presentations. I'm sorry, it'll be just one presentation, excuse me, by Dr. Tarsila Fidalgo from Favela CLT Project and Catalytic Communities, or at Catalytic Communities. Following her presentation, there will be a short Q&A for you to ask questions. So throughout the session, please ask your questions in the Q&A box, and then we'll circle back to them during that time. Before I fully turn things over, I'm just going to have my 2 colleagues on the call introduce themselves. So firstly, Tarsila.
Hello, everyone. Good morning or good evening, good afternoon. My name is Tarsila Fidalgo. As Ben has said, I am the coordinator of the Favela CLT Project. I'm a lawyer and an urban planner. I live in Rio de Janeiro since I was born. And it is a great, great pleasure to be with you today, sharing a little bit of our still little but very intense story with the Community Land Trust here in Rio and in Brazil.
Obrigado, Tarsila. And Felipe, really briefly.
Hello, all. It's a great pleasure to be joining this space with all of you. I'm Felipe, also working in the Favela CLT project as assistant coordinator. I'm also a lawyer, and I have been working with Community Land Trust for 6 years now in Rio de Janeiro. It's been a very pleasant but challenging path so far, and we're happy to share with everybody what our history has been like. So I'll head over to Tarsila to start the lecture.
Okay, well, so let's go. I will share my screen. I hope everyone is seeing my screen right now. So, well, let's start this story from the very beginning. bringing to you some context about Rio de Janeiro specifically, and then we will talk a little bit about Brazil as a whole. So Rio de Janeiro is the second largest city in Brazil. And here we have a very special scenario of the presence of informal settlements in all the neighborhoods of our city. It's a very beautiful city with a lot of beaches, a lot of nature, touristic points, but we have all this informality that is actually in the core of the construction of our city since the very beginning. So by now, we have more than 1,200 favelas in a city that, besides being the second largest city, it is very concentrated in a small geographic territory. So 102,000 favelas is really a large portion of the city. Almost 25% of the city's population lives in favelas, and we are talking about informal settlements that are very, very consolidated, most of them with over 50 years of occupation. Here's some pictures just for you to take a look and the size of this kind of informal settlements in our city. Most of the favelas are not in the ground, but in the mountains of the city. We have a lot of mountains in Rio, so you will see that they are high and in comparison with the rest of the territory and the constructions. And we have this scenario, this kind of constructions. Of course, we have some grade of precarity, but we have a lot of creativity, a lot of leave, a lot of arrangements, very new arrangements in this kind of territory. And this is really important because internationally, we used to see favelas that are usually translated as slums as a place, a very precarious place that should be rebuilt, that should be improved, that should be sometimes exterminated and changed completely. But I would like to highlight that at least in Rio and in Brazil, favelas are much more than precarity. So we have in the favelas the effective stock of social housing in the cities of the country and also in Rio de Janeiro. We have a very inside regulation that acts considering the needs of the residents. And we have a very consolidated culture and a network, a very strong social bonds built by the residents. So the favelas are not just precarious houses or territories that need to be improved. Favelas are territories with a lot of memory, a lot of culture, very strong social bonds that needs to be preserved. And of course, as many territories that we see, we have challenges and possibilities in these places. So some possibilities are related with the innovative solutions, with these strong social bonds, with all the solidarity. There is a very important mark for the residents, and related with the development of very important self-governance skills between the residents. So people, considering the absence of the state to be there and to guarantee the rights to people get together to resolve problems and to guarantee that the territory will have all they need. And of course, we have also a lot of challenges especially related to infrastructure, to public service, all the relation with the public sector, and in most cases, we have the challenge with the armed groups that try every time to dominate these territories. But today, I want to focus in the land tenure challenge. And we will take a look how and why this is so a big challenge for the favelas in Rio and in Brazil. Well, so here we have some pictures of some communities, some favelas in the left, and on the right, some pictures of residents being evicted from their houses. So we have here a resident with a lot of blood in her face, considering all the violence of the policemen, and we have this confront picture downside. And why? Why do we have this kind of conflict in the favelas in Rio? We have two main reasons. The first one was related to the MIGA events period. The MIGA events period was a period between 2009 and 2016, when the Rio de Janeiro have been the place to a lot of international events. So we had the Olympic Games, we had the Pan American Games, we had the Youth Journey from the Catholic Church, we have the World Cup, everything in Rio in this period. And it was also a very interesting period in a political and economic aspect. So we had a very peculiar scenario where it was possible for the mayor to promote the larger wave of eviction in Rio de Janeiro's history. And it is important to highlight that Rio de Janeiro have been the capital of Brazil for more than 300 years. And of course, have passed for a lot of waves of eviction related to the remodeling of the city during all this period. But very recently, we have this huge wave of eviction, and a lot of people have been removed from these circles, these numbered circles, that are places where the government have installed some exportive structures, and people have been evicted from these places to another part of the city, much more precarious, much more poor. Just for you to understand the situation, people that used to live in the 3 and 4 area, they used to take 20 minutes or 30 minutes to go to work, and now living in this area where we see the orange houses, they took more than 2 or 3 hours to go to work. So this is a very huge change for the people, and it was a very sad scenario. A lot of people have died during this period, considering that they could not live without their territory, without the social bonds that they have, without access to infrastructure, without access to hospitals, without access to some health treatments. So it was a really sad period. So we had, at this time, the government evicting people, evicting a lot of people from the favelas in Rio. But also during this period, we had the real estate market evicting people in Rio. So here, some texts, some journalistic tests say to us that the prices in Rio have arisen more than 200%, 300% in this period. So people that usually lives by rent or that have a small house that, well, they could get for a small price, guaranteeing their right to housing, they could not take it anymore, and they have to leave their territories considering the rise of the prices. And this is a very important phenomenon that have happened in the same period in Rio. So at the same time, we have the government evicting people and the real estate market evicting people and generating some gentrification process. Everything was happening at the same time in Brazil. And here we have we used to have the idea that it all could be solved if we could guarantee the formalization of the houses for the residents. So we used to have the idea that if we can regularize, formalize the ownership status of the houses, everything will be great. The residents will be in a more strong positions. And this is something that have proven to be wrong. And here we have a quote from Maria da Penha. There is a resident of Vila Autódromo. Maria da Penha is this woman with blood in her face. And Maria da Penha said to us that titles don't guarantee we can stay on our land, because I had 2 concessions of use. There is a type of title of the land in Brazil. And to be able to stay, I practically died. So this is a very complex scenario for us. And in Brazil, we do not have at the time tools to fight against all of this violence that we have testified in these territories. So we start to take a look outside Brazil, take a look internationally for models, for tools that could help us to deal with all of this. And then we find the CLT model. At first, the CLT model in the US, in Europe, that have a very different framework from what we need to apply in the favelas and informal settlements. But at some point, we find out the Puerto Rico experience with the Fideicomiso de la Tierra Caño Martín Peña. It was the first experience, a very successful one, of a CLT in a favela, in a large informal settlement, and they are, well, outstanding. They are really great to provide the security of land tenure for the residents. So considering the Puerto Rico example, we start to think that maybe we should think about a CLT in Brazil. And why? Why we should think about a CLT in Brazil? Well, at first, the CLT is able to address the residents' #1 concern. There is permanence. Most of the residents want to be more secure in their houses. They want to be sure that they could stay for the time they want to. So this is really, really important. And at some point, they were threatened by the state and also by the real estate market. So have a tool that could guarantee that they could stay. It was really important for us, and that is something that the Community Land Trust could offer. Second, the Community Land Trust could help us to maintain the common assets developed through informality. As I said before, favelas are not just precarity. They have social bonds, a very, very special social bonds. They have culture, they have a lot of creativity, arrangements. So it's really important to keep all this value. And the CLT could help us with this too. CLTs could maintain what has become Brazil's de facto affordable housing stock. As I said before, the favelas, these kinds of informal settlements, they compose the effective affordable housing stock, not just in Rio, but throughout the Brazil. So the CLT could help us to guarantee the development of these territories, but maintain them as a social housing stock. CLTs could also preserve or encode common assets and last but not least, CLTs not just allow but encourage favelas to continue self-organizing. And this is really important because the residents have being having been leaders of their own territory, doing whatever they have to guarantee the access for basic service or the access to very, very basic things as water or sewage. And it's really important for us to find a model that could help them to keep this protagonism on the territories. And the CLT matches with all our concerns and could help us to address all of these challenges for once. So we start to think that maybe we should create a favela community land trust. So having the example of Puerto Rico, Caño Martín Peña, and also keeping the core components of a community land trust anywhere that are the voluntary membership, the collective owned land, the individually owned homes, community control of CLT, community control of the territory, and the permanent affordability. Maybe we can create a community land trust in the favelas in Rio, helping the residents to stay, to develop their territories and to stay there. So we start a bunch of activities trying to think about this model. At first, we had a workshop with the folks from Puerto Rico. They came to Brazil to tell us about their experience, to tell us about how the community land trusts have helped him during all these years. Here's some pictures. We put together technicians, residents, leaders, social movements, researchers, professors from universities. We put everyone together in a 3-day workshop to think about the community land trust model, its possibilities and challenges in Brazil. So here are some of the activities during these days. It was a very impressive experience. Everyone was so excited with the idea. We have presented the CLT model also in some small communities in Rio to understand in the territories if people will understand the idea and what they would think about it. So here is another favela where we were presenting. And then we decide to start officially a project. And during the years, considering the growing of the movement around the community land trust, we had to divide this project in 3 different work fronts. So we have the mobilization work front that works directly in the territories, directly with the residents to create all the framework for the community land trust. We have the advocacy work front because until 2018, nobody even knows, nobody even have heard about community land trust in Brazil. So we had to put it in our legislations, even considering that we already have some legal tools that allows us to build a community land trust. It is really important to have the community land trust recognized by its name in our laws. So we have this advocacy front with the government, with the politicians, and the dissemination front, because as you may know, Brazil is a continental country. So we start in Rio de Janeiro. There is just one city in the country, and we had to spread the word. We had to talk to people, to talk to everyone that could be interested throughout the Brazil. So we have started a work front completely dedicated to it. So during all this work front work, during all this period, we have developed for the mobilization front specifically some preferential conditions for a favela CLT in Brazil. As I said before, we have more than 1,200 favelas just in Rio. And we had to define some criteria to guarantee that we could choose 3 or 4 to start the work to build a community land trust. So considering specifically the Rio de Janeiro context, we have developed these 4 preferential conditions. The first one, the fact that the community should be consolidated with a strong sense of belonging. So people have to have this bound with the territory. A large percentage of the families that do not yet possess land titles, so with no formalization of their land tenure, but with reasonable likelihood of acquiring these titles. Residents perceiving or having experienced threats of involuntary displacement by the state or by the real estate market, because this kind of experience usually guarantee that the residents will think more deeply about the permanence aspect and how to address it, and a mature process of community organizing. So we start with communities that already had technical allies, that already had an organization of the residents to guarantee that our work could be easier in these territories. So here's some pictures of our meetings. And here I'm very proud to present to you our pilot communities. So the communities that works with us in Rio, some of them for 6 years by now, another for 2 years, but that are working now in Rio to put on its feet the first community land trust, the first favela community land trust in Brazil. So the first one is Esperança Community. It is a group of 72 families with more than 15 years of self-built public housing. This is not exactly a favela, but is a poor territory where people have built their own houses with the help of the government. They are awaiting their titles, their formalization, and now they are working to create the community land trust. So some pictures, some materials about the Esperança community. Here we have another of our communities, our pilot communities. There is Shangri-La. Shangri-La has, it's a small, it was once a housing cooperative, but they have not been formalized before. So it is a group of 29 families that have self-building the houses and collectively deal with all the territory. They are also awaiting titles from the government, and they are working by now to build the framework for the community land trust. So here's some pictures of the Shangri-La community where we work since 2022, I guess, 3 years by now. And here we have our last pilot community. It is Terra Prometida, Promised Land, or something like this in English. So here we have a typical favela with a lot of control for armed groups. It's a big challenge for us. But they have self-built homes. They have a very interesting focus on sustainable actions. So they are very interested in the sovereign, on food sovereign, and in working with nature-based solutions in the territory. So we are there helping them to organize themselves and to create all the framework that we need to guarantee a community land trust there also. So here's some pictures for you to see. Here a picture with the World CLT Day, I believe the last year art. But of course, all our work in the favelas have facing a lot of challenge. So we have here some of them just to open the discussion with you. The first one is a pre-existing cultural and political bias in favor of individual titles. We cannot ignore that the residents in favelas, in informal settlements, they are inserted in a capitalist society, and of course, they valorize the individual title. They want to be the owners of their house. So making them understand that in a model that puts together the collective and individual ownership as a community land trust, they will be more protected than with individual title is a challenge. It's not easy, but we have been succeeded in this aspect, but it's not easy, definitely. The second challenge is the organized crime. So we have here in Brazil the militias, the drug traffickers, and of course deal with these groups is very hard for our small team that needs to be on the territory, building the framework in constant dialogue with the residents. So sometimes is really hard to us. We have also the challenge of the distrust of land titling. So in general, some residents do not trust and receive this land titling. They do not trust to have the formalization of their ownership, and they are worried about the associated regulation and higher costs of living. So the formalization of the land implies a raise of the cost of living, and many residents show us concern about it. And the last challenge, just to open the discussion, because of course we have more than this, is the challenge of achieving unity and establishing and maintaining a community institution indefinitely. In these territories, of course, they are not just a big family, and that not everyone loves everyone. We have a lot of conflicts, a lot, and guarantee that they will conduct an institution that will hold the land in the name of the community land trust, and that this arrangement could remain in the long term is a big challenge for us. We have to work a lot with the communitarian aspects. We have to work a lot to make people understand that they are stronger together, to guarantee that this will last for the time that we want and that we need. But beside all this challenge, our work have been really well succeeded. We have a lot of good news, not just about the diffusion, but also a lot of achievements that we have during the last 7 years by now of project in Brazil. So we have more than 2,000 people that have been subscribers in our online educational activities, as the CLT National Seminar that we try to do every year to raise awareness about the model in Brazil. We have the community land trust included in 4 cities master plans, including the Rio de Janeiro one, that is the second largest city in the country. So it's really important to have the community land trust recognized in these master plans, because a lot of cities use it to copy what Rio de Janeiro put in its master plan. So it's a very great achievement for us. We have groups from several cities in Brazil that have already expressed interest in implementing the CLT in their territories. So now we do not work just in Rio de Janeiro. We work also supporting groups in another cities to create all the framework that they need to create a community land trust. And we have had the inclusion of the model in political and academic debates about urban and housing policy. So if until 2018 nobody knows about community land trust, I can guarantee to you that now in 2025, everybody knows about community land trust. Everybody talks about community land trust in Brazil, even considering that we don't have a CLT formalized yet. We have its presence in most of the debates about social housing and about urban policy in Brazil. And this is huge, considering not just the size of Brazil, but also the political context that we have faced in the last years. So here, some recognitions we have won in the last years, and I'm about to close my presentation to open a dialogue with you. So we have the insertion of the CLT as an urban policy instrument in some legislations. So the master plans, and now we have also a federal proposal of legislation that once approved will guarantee that CLT should and must somehow be applied throughout all the country. We have more than 50 academic papers published about the CLT model in Brazil. So until 2018, nobody have ever written about it, and now we have more than 50 academic papers. So we have a very important interest in the model in the university, so with the academics. We have participation in national seminars promoted by social movements. So here in Brazil, we have a lot of social movements that fight for the right to housing, and they are recently recognizing the CLT as a very important tool to this fight. We have a growing recognition also by technicians across the country. So we have a lot of technicians that works for the governments that came to us trying to understand better, try to help us to spread the word, or trying to support groups that came to the government wanting to implement the community land trust. So this is a very huge achievement for us. And we have a rise in international recognition as a best practice project. So as I said before, we still don't have a community land trust formalized, but we have a very interesting project with these 3 work fronts: the advocacy one, the mobilization one, and the dissemination. And this project and the methodologies that we have been used have been international recognized as a best practice. So what's the future have to us? Well, which are our next steps? The first one is to continue the advocacy work, especially to approve the federal law. That will be a very important step for the development of the community land trust in Brazil. Find funding to start also a traditional CLT project. So until today, we are working with the idea to apply the community land trust model in an informal settlement, but we think it could be really interesting to bet also in a traditional CLT, to buy some land, build some houses, and make a community land trust from the zero, as we used to say here. It could reinforce the possibilities and the flexibility of the model. So we are trying to also work on this. We will try to acquire land in our pilot communities to formalize the first Brazilian community land trust. Most of our pilot communities already have all the institutional framework that they need to be a community land trust, but they have to acquire the land. So we are working on that with the government. It's not easy, but we are putting out all our efforts to guarantee that we will have this land and formalize the first Brazilian community land trust. And we really want to keep the efforts to spread the word throughout the country about the possibilities of the CLT model, and not just throughout Brazil, but also internationally, specifically, especially in the Global South. We definitely saw a lot of potential. We see a lot of potential in the CLT model for another countries in the Global South, and we really aim to spread the word and help groups to develop community land trusts outside Brazil too. So here is our website for anyone that wants to take a deep dive in our work. We have there some contact spread too, so you can left some messages for us. We will be more than happy to answer you and to dialogue. Well, I will stop share here, and I think we can open for the Q&A questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tarsila. Muito obrigado. That was an amazing presentation. And you know, you and I, or actually all of us, I guess, on the call, we speak pretty regularly, but I think it's more with a global focus. So learning more about what's going on in country in Brazil is really cool. So thank you so much for this presentation. And actually, so you ended very nicely on just a global vision. And I'm gonna ask your colleague, or I guess our colleague, Felipe, really quickly to just, I don't want to, use too much time for Q&A, but I'd love for Felipe to talk a little bit more about the Global South CLT initiative that we have going on. And just a couple minutes, we do have a couple of questions, so we'll be sure to include those. In the meantime, everybody, get your questions in, and then we'll come back to them. So I'm going to turn it over to Felipe now.
Thank you, Ben. Yes, so Tarsila ended her presentation sharing a bit of the potential we see for community land trusts in the Global South, and we thought it would be a great idea to share with you all what the work we've been doing with the Global South CLT initiative. So I'm gonna share my screen very quickly to do a very small presentation. Promise won't take too long, so we have time to answer questions. But the Global South CLT initiative is a very recent movement that we started from Catalytic Communities in Rio de Janeiro and the International Center for Community Land Trust in order to promote the idea of the community land trust in countries in the Global South, presenting as a powerful solution for addressing housing rights in their reality. So as you all know, the community land trust is a model that was originated in the Global North, in the United States, and it's the region that concentrates most experiences with CLTs. But over the past decades, and more recently in recent years, we have been facing an increase in the interest of countries in the Global South about this model. So we have today two consolidated experiences in the Global South, which are in Kenya and Puerto Rico. But we also see a rise of groups interested in the model and initiatives trying to develop pilot projects of CLTs in Brazil, Bolivia, India, Pakistan, and many other countries. So then we thought it would be a good idea to create a network in order to spread this idea and share knowledge, challenges, and especially experiences from projects that are undergoing this right now. And why would we promote CLTs for the Global South? I guess before that, a very important difference about the way the CLTs are taught in the Global North and in the Global South is that in the North, CLTs often work with new housing developments. So CLTs focus on acquiring land to develop housing units and maintaining them at an affordable price. However, in the Global South, CLTs have been addressed as a solution for informal settlements, pre-existing communities that already have solidarity networks, already have self-governance practices, and they are trying to regularize the access and land rights. So CLTs are being taught for this context, which poses incredible differences as the way this model is being taught for both scenarios. And CLTs for the Global South are an interesting solution because first, the protection against displacement, as Tarsila shared, forced evictions are a common reality in favelas and other informal settlements. So we need a model that can bring a strong sense of protection, and not only against state eviction, but also against gentrification and speculation, considering that many favelas are located in high value areas of the city. So they also need some protection against market pressure over their lands. To secure collective land rights, favelas are territories that are already regulated in a collective way. So we should think of land rights also collectively and not exclusively individual. To create a model for empowering community governance so that residents can take their own decisions about what kind of community they want to build, and then we ensure community-led development and not some kind of development that comes from the government or from other actors. The adaptation to local context, so we're talking about a very flexible model that can easily be adapted to address issues in European cities and in favelas of Rio de Janeiro or Puerto Rico. So flexibility is a very important asset that makes this model so easily to be transported. And also to maintain public investments in urban areas. We often see a process that public investments are dedicated to informal settlements and favelas. These investments leads to an increase in land value, and often these people are not able to remain in their community after this investment. So CLTs can be a way to maintain the public investments in the hands of those who need vulnerable population, and also to maintain social housing in these scenarios. So informal settlements, they are fertile ground to discuss CLTs, since much of the components of CLTs are already present in informal settlements and favelas, such as self-governance practices, solidarity networks, and affordable housing. We can actually think of favelas as informal CLTs because residents, they by their own effort, they create regulations and community governance without any kind of formal structure. And we should create an approach with favelas not as a way to correct these territories or to make a favela become more like the formal city, but rather to improve the issues they face and to preserve the qualities of informality. Informality, it's often portrayed as something inherently bad or poor or that should be improved, but informality has a lot of qualities that we should focus on preserving. And often other approaches to favelas through individual titles, for example, will not take this in. So the Global South CLT initiative was officially launched in 2023. And it's a network that is co-led by the International CLT Center and Catalytic Communities. We have been improving a regional collaboration with folks from Puerto Rico, South Africa, and other countries, working to promote an exchange of knowledge between different countries and hopefully encouraging other countries to take into account CLTs and other forms of community-led housing in order to address challenges faced by the favelas and informal settlements. So our initial focus was Latin America and the Caribbean, but we're trying to expand also our reach to Asia and Africa and regions that are showing interest in this kind of discussion. So our initiative objectives, it's important to know that Global South is a very vast region, imaginary region of the country. So even though we have very different contexts, we do have some common challenges. So this network is really focusing on exploring these kind of common challenges that we face in countries that are so distant from each other and have such particularities in their context. But we're trying to learn from experiences in different countries, promote a South-South exchange so we can learn, like global South countries can learn from other global South countries and promote this sort of exchange, raise awareness about community land trust, to spread the word about this model and its potentials for informal settlements, and just trying to understand and create some collaboration possibilities. And we're currently in our third phase, which are individual meetings with groups. So over the past year and this year, we have been making meetings with so many groups for so many countries in order to invite them into the network and, trying to create a collaboration or a long-term idea. And we still have a long way to go because we're still in the beginning. But I think that overall, it's been a very interesting experience in participating. And hopefully we can spread the word and strengthen these kinds of cooperation. So this is our context in order for you to learn more about the initiative. And I guess I'll stop my presentation so we can come back to the Q&A. Thank you.
Also, tremendous presentation, Felipe. Muito obrigado. And also, it seems as though that time that you were presenting, Tarsila has been just working through Q&A. She's been answering questions, addressing things left and right. But the good news is we've got lots of questions still to come and only 7 minutes to do it. So I think we'll do our very best. I think I will select this first question related to, have you thought about working with more rural communities for pilot projects? This is going to go to either Felipe or Tarsila.
I think I will let Felipe answer, and I will answer the next one, type in, and we go this way.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we have definitely discussed this in many occasions, and even though it's something we really hope for, our project still works in a small scale, and Rio de Janeiro, the urban context and the favelas we have, they already take up much of our time. But I would like to express that in the rural area of Brazil, the discussion about collective property, communal property is very strong, especially within social movements. So we have the Movimento Sem Terra, MST, the landless movement, which is one of the biggest social movements in the world. And they defend some arrangements, collective property arrangements that are very similar to CLTs. So it's something definitely in our horizon to build bridges with this movement and to understand what are their demands and challenges and how can we work together in some kind of way. But so far this year, we have been focusing in the urban context, the informal context of Rio de Janeiro and other cities of Brazil, which are already very challenging. But hopefully in the future, we can improve this discussion in the rural areas.
Great. Thanks so much. And This next question I think is really interesting. So, Tarsila, in your presentation, you mentioned that organized crime and militias are a big threat. One of the attendees has a question related to how can you deal with this? They're in Mexico, so they're in a very similar situation. Um, what do you have? What thoughts do you have on this?
This is really interesting, Anja. And well, I left this question to answer live because this is something that everyone asks us. And of course, we don't have a receipt to deal with armed groups. They are, well, they just do what they want. But we truly believe that the power of the community help them to somehow react to these groups and even to, well, evict these groups from the territory. Because here in Rio, our experience shows that these groups do not want to be in territories that have a very strong community organizing. They prefer to be in communities where people are more are more separated, are more, well, not very united. So we really believe in the empowerment of the community and the process of guarantee this institutional framework that we need for the community land trust is a very empowering process. We have this experience in our pilot community. So it's really interesting to see how the communities get more united. They could reflect more about their territory and they could resist more to these groups. But of course, this is not a cure. This is not something that will solve all the problems related to these kind of threats. But this is the most that we as social society, civil society, that we can provide to the residents.
Okay, thank you so much. That's a great answer, and it seems as though it's kind of definitely resonating this issue with a few other Q&A attendees. So I hope that that answer was helpful. Oh, we just got another one, and let's make this sort of the last question for now. Um, so this person indicates that they're Japanese and lived their childhood in Rio. Given all communities are still waiting land title, what would be the biggest difficulty to obtain the land title for these CLTs introduced into the community? I believe that that's the question. Tarsila, Felipe?
Felipe, do you want to answer?
So what would be the biggest
Yes.
difficulty to obtain the land title?
Okay. So I think what we need to keep in mind that favelas and informal settlements in Brazil and especially in Rio are very consolidated territories. They are for generations. So most people that live in favelas already have land rights, already have rights to become become owners, land owners in their territory. So most favela residents already have the right to become the formal owner of their land. However, it's just a few minority that access these land rights because the process to obtain such land rights are through land reform programs or the judicial path, come to a judicial action in order to make the state recognize such land rights. And both of these possibilities are very complicated. There is a very high dependency on the government in order to promote land rights, to recognize land rights. The processes, they take very long. Usually the government arguments that they don't have technical capacity to do it, or they lack proper infrastructure, or they lack resources, or politically there are other more important matters. And so I guess these are the main difficulties. The difficulty lies within the dependency on the government. So we have a community, for example, Shangri-La, that we presented land reform request for the government, and it was 2 years ago, and absolutely no progress so far. And for people that live there for 30 years. So I guess this is the main difficulty, and this would also be the main challenge to formalize the first Brazilian CLT. We need to guarantee access to land, and this has been a huge challenge here.
Thank you so much. And with that, everybody, we're at the top of the hour. That means that we did amazing work today, and it seems as though you all have been doing really amazing work over these years. So, parabéns, felicitaciones. You don't speak Spanish in this context, but it's all good. Congratulations. Any final words? And then I'm going to wrap up really quickly.
Thank you. I just want to thank you, everyone, that have joined this session and that will see us on the video. And well, it's a pleasure to be here discussing all the work that we have been doing during all these years. And long live to the CLT movement all around the world.
Yeah, que viva.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. And I would also like to invite, if you are watching if you are from a global South country and wish to join the network, please write us, and we can talk, promote further talk. And yeah, it's been a pleasure being here, and happy World CLT Day to everybody.